Part 14. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 131. In the ancient well, the water is churning. It seemed like something was coming out of the water. I frowned. What on earth is in this ancient well? The well water was churning more and more violently, like boiling hot water, bubbling and bubbling. Suddenly, a round thing floated up from the bottom of the well. I took a closer look and was shocked. That round thing turned out to be a soaked and rotten human head. The well water continued to churn, followed by the second, third, and fourth. Countless heads tumbled out of the well. It's densely packed and very penetrating. I felt more and more horrified. Is this still the city god's temple? This is simply purgatory on earth. The cries came from the mouths of these heads. As heads tumbled out from the bottom of the well, the cries became more permeable and desolate. Their cries contained deep unwillingness and sadness. There is definitely something wrong with the city god's temple. And this city god is not a good god either. Tap tap tap. Suddenly there was dull footsteps behind me. I was shocked and instantly recalled a sentence. That is, the two of them did not look at the well. I'm alone now, so I'm not as guarded. But don't forget, there is another person in the city god's temple. That's the Taoist priest I knocked unconscious. I turned around suddenly and saw that the Taoist priest had come behind me, and he had already stretched out his hands to me. My expression condensed and I quickly hid aside. However, he was pushed by the Taoist priest and staggered, almost falling into the bottom of the well. I quickly stabilized my body and distanced myself from the Taoist priest. Jajaja. The Taoist priest had a sullen face and laughed horribly at me. I haven't met such an interesting little guy for a long time. I didn't say anything, and I was holding Lei Ju seal with my right hand behind my back. Your life is very special. Kill you. Dedicate your soul to the city god, he will definitely like it. Through this sentence, I can already confirm it. This city god is a false god. On the surface, he looks bright and upright. But behind the scenes, he instructed Taoist priests to kill innocent people, take their lives, and eat their souls. The Taoist priest pressed towards me step by step, and I backed away step by step. Black mist emanated from the Taoist priest. Still an evil way. This is bad. I'm not sure I can beat the opponent without sneak attacks. If you are not careful, you may lose your life. The Taoist priest waved his hand, and the big willow tree next to him rustled non-stop, and the hanged ghosts were released one by one. Him. Kill him. The hanged ghosts rushed towards me without any hesitation. Seeing this scene, I no longer hesitated. I pinched Lei Ju's right hand and slapped it towards the Taoist priest. The lightning flashed, and the crackling sound resounded in the air. The Taoist priest did not expect that I would suddenly attack. He raised a sneer at the corner of his mouth and waved the dust in his hand. The whisk tail instantly became extremely hard, like a sharp sword. The fly whisk came towards me and collided with the thunder Ju in my right hand. With a bang, I was instantly knocked out. I struggled to stand up. This evil old man was really powerful. Now I am no match for him. Jajaja. Boy, you can't run away this time. I then considered whether I should use my bloody hands to separate the soul from the body and then crush it. Just then, I heard a roar. Your Grandpa Wu is here. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 132. Wu 11 shouted this. The ground was thundered, and the earth was shaken. I was startled by his voice. Of course, the veteran was also frightened. When he turned around, Wu 11's fist had already hit him in the face. Unprepared, the old man was hit in the face by Wu 11's punch. Just hearing a click, the bridge of the old man's nose collapsed instantly, and his nosebleeds spread out. This scene made me wonder. Wu 11's punches reached their maximum speed and strength. Unexpectedly, Wu 11, who looks so weak and weak, can be so skilled. The Taoist priest held his nose and stood up with difficulty, blood slowly flowing down his fingers. Not to mention how miserable he looked. Boy! You don't have martial ethics. How dare you steal? Before the word sneak attack could be said, Wu 11 raised his foot and kicked the Taoist priest in the stomach. As expected, this kick kicked the old man away again. Then Wu 11 took another lunge and shouted at the old Taoist, "You think this is a duel? You." Wu 11 rode on the Taoist priest, punching him one after another. The Taoist priest was beaten so hard that he was unable to fight back. He wanted to use Taoist magic but found that he couldn't use it at all. Wu 11 saw me frozen on the spot and shouted at me, "What are you still looking at? Hurry up and find the soul coffin." I suddenly woke up and ran towards the main hall of the city god temple. When I came to the main hall of the Chenghuang temple, I started to look around. Where exactly is the soul coffin hidden? I looked at the statue of the city god and placed my gaze on the eyes of the statue again. Just now when I was worshipping the city god, I had the illusion that the eyes of the statue were staring at me closely. At the time, I thought it was an illusion, but now that I think about it, there must be something fishy about it. But now that I'm standing in front of the statue, I don't feel like I'm being watched. I hesitated for a moment, then came to the statue, knelt down again, and kowtowed several times to the statue. Just when I was about to raise my head, the feeling of being watched came over me again. I was shocked. If once was a coincidence, what about the second time? I raised my head and looked at the statue. The eyes of the statue have changed. They were looking straight ahead before, but now they are staring at me. Etc. The eyes of the statue don't seem to be looking at me. I looked along the line of sight of the statue and was stunned for a moment. It turns out, the eyes of the statue were not looking at me, but at a brick in front of me. Seeing this scene, I instantly knew the location of the soul coffin. I stretched out my hand and pressed hard on the place where the statue was looking. The stone brick sank slowly, and the creaking sound of the machine's operation could be heard in my ears. The ground in the center of the hall began to sink, and then a dark coffin was brought up. The coffin was completely black and exuded a cold air that was visible to the naked eye. Unexpectedly, this huge Chenghuang temple actually contains a coffin. I was overjoyed. Finally found. I looked at the time and saw that there were still 10 minutes until 12 o'clock. These 10 minutes are enough to carry the soul-suppressing coffin out. I quickly took out my cell phone and called Mr. Wu. Mr. Wu had already arranged for the coffin bearers to be carried near the Chenghuang temple. This is also very convenient for carrying the coffin, because Wu 11 and I cannot carry the coffin out. The soul-suppressing coffin should be the body of the city god. But now is not the time to open the coffin. Mr. Wu must handle all this. When the call was connected, I told Mr. Wu about my situation. After hearing this, Mr. Wu didn't talk nonsense. He said, "I understand," and then hung up the phone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 133. Wu 11 is still fighting with Lao Dao. The old Taoist has broken free from Wu 11's shackles and has now begun to use Taoism. But Wu 11 didn't panic at all and dealt with it calmly. The moves Wu 11 performed were very strange. It must be the exclusive secret technique of the coffin bearer. Each row has its own unique secrets and moves. Whether it is a paper maker, a coffin bearer or a horse fairy, they all have their own gatekeeping skills. Of course, these are secrets that are not told and it is impossible for outsiders to know. Moreover, when Wu 11 was fighting, he kept his mouth busy and cursed non-stop. The old nonsense and the things that will kill you all popped out of his mouth. I originally wanted to step forward to help, but seeing Wu 11's calm demeanor, I gave up this idea. With Wu 11 keeping the Taoist priest in check, I can concentrate on transporting the soul-suppressing coffin. I took out my phone and looked at the time again. 10 minutes have passed and 3 minutes have passed. There are still 7 minutes left. Why haven't these people come yet? Another 3 minutes passed, and I finally saw the coffin bearer sent by Mr. Wu. There were 4 people in total, all of them strong men. In their hands they held the tools needed to carry the coffin. When the Taoist priest saw someone coming, he quickly stopped what he was doing. When the Taoist priest saw the tools in the hands of the coffin bearer, his expression suddenly changed, and then he turned his attention to the city god's hall. "How dare you touch the soul-suppressing coffin?" Wu 11 cursed and said, "I just moved. How to find it?" With that said, he launched another attack on the Taoist priest. The Taoist priest could only respond hastily. At this moment, the Taoist priest was a little overwhelmed and wanted to stop me, but was stopped by Wu 11. I quickly called the coffin bearer to my side. Then, without waiting for my instructions, the coffin bearers began to tie the rope to the soul coffin. The 4 of them worked hard together, but something strange happened. The 4 people's faces turned red from holding back, but they were unable to shake the soul-suppressing coffin in the slightest. I saw one of the men take out a talisman from his pocket and stick it on the coffin. The cold air emanating from the coffin subsided at a speed visible to the naked eye. 1, 2, 3. The man who had just applied the talisman shouted "beat," and the other 4 pressed hard together. This time the soul coffin was lifted easily. 4 men carried the soul-suppressing coffin and walked toward the gate of the city god's temple. I quickly followed behind them. The Taoist priest watched helplessly as the soul-suppressing coffin passed in front of him. But he couldn't stop it. The Taoist priest freed up his hand and began to hold the seal. Then he shouted loudly, and a dark wind filled the city god's temple. The big willow tree swayed wildly, and the hanged ghosts were let down from the tree one by one. And that ancient well exuded a strong blood energy, and heads that were soaked and rotten rose into the sky. Human heads and hanged ghosts are swarming towards me. When I saw this scene, I looked shocked and quickly picked up the seal of the 9 layers of Thunder Ju. The Taoist priest laughed heartily when he saw this scene. "You don't have much time. The city god is coming back. None of you can run away." Indeed, what the Taoist said was right. I don't have much time left. I can't let these ghost things interfere with the pallbearers who are carrying the coffin. Otherwise, no one will be able to leave after the city god comes back. The human head moved faster than the hanged ghost and was in front of me in the blink of an eye. I hit him with a 9-fold thunderbolt. Thunder and lightning exploded, and with a bang, some heads were blown away by me. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 134. The scene in front of me is no different from the mountain of corpses in Lightless Alley. Even more dangerous than that time. Because these hanged ghosts and heads have lost their own thoughts. Become a puppet at the mercy of others. Even if I had the intention to send them away, there is no way they would enter the gates of Hades. But it's impossible to eliminate these ghosts just by relying on the 9 layers thunder technique. I picked up the Thunder Ju again and blasted it towards the hanged man closest to me. Now I can't care about these poor people. If the Holy Mother's heart is overflowing at this time and I show mercy, I will die without a burial place. You can have the heart of the Holy Mother, but it depends on the situation. Now, I regret not bringing Jingxiao with me. If we bring Jingxiao, it shouldn't be a problem to deal with these hanged ghosts. I used Thunder Ju to repel some hanged ghosts and heads, but I couldn't hold back the large number of opponents. Ants can kill elephants. Not to mention evil. Gradually, I became a little unable to do what I wanted. Some of the hanged men had already broken through my barrier to interfere with the coffin bearers. The psychological quality of these coffin bearers is also excellent. No matter how harassed these evil spirits were, they still carried the coffin wholeheartedly. Coffin bearers, I have never seen anything like this. Compared with these, letting the soul-suppressing coffin fall to the ground is the most deadly. Continuing like this is not an option. I suddenly thought of what Xiang Yi once said to me. The power of ghost seals is far more powerful than you think, especially the gate to the underworld. Thinking of this, I no longer hesitated and directly summoned the gate of the underworld. The dark door appeared out of thin air. The door was like a huge black hole. I activated the ghost seal again and used all my mental power to control the gate of the underworld. Suddenly, the gate of the underworld generates a powerful suction force that swallows up all evil spirits. The hanging ghost and human head were sucked into the gate of the underworld by this powerful suction force. I was overjoyed. I never thought that this gate to the underworld could be used in this way. The Taoist priest looked horrified when he saw this scene, and he quickly strengthened his control over these hanging ghosts and heads. The hanged ghosts struggled wildly in the gate of the underworld, but to no avail. At this moment, I suddenly felt weak in my limbs and an endless sense of dizziness came over me. Is this a side effect of activating the ghost seal? No, it should be that my mental strength is too weak to use the gate of the underworld for a long time. But if we give up now, we will all die here. I looked at the team carrying the coffin, and they were almost at the gate of the Chenghuang temple. I gritted my teeth and persisted. Cannot give up. I absolutely cannot give up. Wu 11 also noticed something strange about me, so she directly pushed Wu 11 back, and then came to stand in front of me. A pair of fists danced like tigers, and they were able to repel the hanging ghost. The Taoist priest struggled to stand up and looked at me with eyes full of hatred. None of you can escape today. You will all die here. Your souls. Your bodies. Like these guys, they will all be imprisoned here. The Taoist priest yelled at Wu 11 and me. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding environment changed instantly. The night became darker and darker, and there were bursts of thunder in the sky, as if something was approaching. The Taoist priest laughed unbridled when he saw the scene in front of him. Ha ha ha. You're done. You're done. The city god is back. I was shocked. I saw a golden light flashing in the night sky, falling directly on the main hall. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 135. A golden light suddenly appeared, which stung me so much that I couldn't open my eyes. It was also this interruption that caused the gate of the underworld to disappear. The moment the gate of the underworld disappeared, my legs weakened, my vision turned black, and I fell towards the ground. Wu 11 quickly helped me up with quick eyes and hands. I opened my eyes with difficulty and looked in the direction of the city god's hall. I saw a middle-aged man wearing ancient official uniform standing under the statue. The appearance of the middle-aged man is exactly the same as the face of the statue, without any deviation. Is this the city god? The city god's brows reveal a majestic righteousness, as if he can drive away all evil spirits in the world. He slowly moved his eyes, and finally placed his eyes on the soul coffin. The city god's expression condensed, and a huge coercion spread from him. There was a fear in my heart. Her legs were shaking uncontrollably, and Wu 11 was no better, with no color on her delicate face. Wu 11 was shocked and shouted to the coffin bearers, "Hurry up and lower the coffin." Upon hearing this, several coffin bearers quickly lowered the coffin. The city god flashed and came to the coffin bearer in an instant. Wu 11 fell to his knees with a plop when he saw this scene. He shouted at the city god, "City god! It's the boy's fault. It's the boy who coveted the soul-suppressing coffin." The city god slowly turned his head, his expression cold, making people feel chilly in their hearts. The city god's reaction at this moment was also very normal. Although the city god is the protector of a city, he should be very friendly to the people. But now, his coffin is being carried out, which is equivalent to his home being overturned. No one can avoid being angry. You. The city god spoke slowly. His voice actually produced echoes in the empty environment. Why did you touch my god's coffin? Wu 11 opened his mouth and was about to explain when I said to the side, City god, I did all this. It has nothing to do with them. In this case, I can't let Wu 11 take the blame for me. He was originally here to help me. If something happens here, how will I explain it to Mr. Wu? The city god set his sights on me. He was stunned for a moment, looking a little surprised, but this surprise was fleeting, but it was accurately captured by me. The fierce temperament of the city god slowly dissipated. He said to me, you go to the main hall and tell me. Wu 11 and I looked at each other. Wu 11 stood up and helped me to the main hall. At this time, the Taoist priest hurriedly came up to him and said quickly, Lord City God, you must punish them severely. They planned to suppress the soul coffin and sent the hanged ghost and human head to the underworld, which disrupted your plan. As soon as these words came out, the city god's expression condensed and he looked at the Taoist priest. The Taoist priest was startled by the appearance of the city god and quickly lowered his head. The city god slowly said, what is my plan? If it weren't for the two of them, would I know what you were doing? The Taoist priest was stunned for a moment and raised his head in disbelief. City god, you didn't ask me to do these things. Before he finished speaking, the city god waved his hand, and the Taoist priest's head was separated instantly and he died miserably on the ground. Seeing this scene, I was extremely frightened. This city god's attack is too ruthless. Although this Taoist priest deserves to die, you still have to ask him to finish his words. This behavior of the city god made me suspect that he was killing people and silencing them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 136. The city god said that if it were not for Wu 11 and me, he would not have known what the Taoist priests were doing. However, this obviously doesn't make sense. A Taoist priest killed people in the city god's temple. How could he not know about this as a man god in a city? In my opinion, not only did the city god know about it, he might even be the Taoist priest who ordered it. But why did he choose to kill and silence him? This makes me puzzled. At this time, the city god stood quietly in front of Wu 11 and me. He glanced at me and Wu 11 and said, I'm very sorry. This kind of thing happened in my territory. I'm deeply sorry. Wu 11 and I were slightly stunned by the attitude of the city god. We really didn't expect him to apologize to us. Wrong. After being stunned for a moment, I was keenly aware that something was wrong with what the city god said. He wasn't apologizing, he was testing. He was testing whether Wu 11 and I believed that the hanging of ghosts and heads was the work of a Taoist priest alone. The smile on the city god's face gave me chills in my heart. Unexpectedly, Cheng Huang, the orthodox human god, turned out to be a hypocrite. I quickly took advantage of the situation and said, Lord City God, this matter is not your fault. It was all done by that Taoist priest and has nothing to do with you. Wu 11 also echoed, that's right. That's right. This is all the fault of that Taoist priest. The smile on the city god's face became stronger and stronger, making it difficult to tell whether he was really smiling or fake. No matter what, it was because I failed to take good care of him. I will give an explanation to those who died unjustly. I don't know whether I will confess or not, but I know that my current situation is very dangerous. If I say the wrong thing, I will probably not be able to leave here. The city god continued, what do you want the soul-suppressing coffin for? Wu 11 subconsciously wanted to answer, and I quickly gave him a wink. The city god cannot know about Qinjiangxing. Because I still don't know the reason why the city god didn't kill me. After all, the 9 evil stars are needed by humans and gods. Regardless of whether they are humans or gods, they will all look at the 9 evil stars and want to take them for themselves. Wu 11 understood, closed his mouth, and said no more words. I looked at the city god, took a deep breath, and said respectfully, "City god, I want the soul-suppressing coffin to save lives." The city god stared at me closely, his eyes full of scrutiny and quite coercive. Under this gaze, I felt like my mind was about to be read by him. "Oh." The city god said slowly and unhurriedly, "Help? Whose life to save? Whose life will need the soul-suppressing coffin?" I raised my head and replied in a neither humble nor condescending manner, "Save my grandfather's life." After my grandfather died, he felt resentful, and his yang energy lingered for a long time. Now he is about to turn into a zombie. Only a soul-crushing coffin can bury him peacefully. Reincarnation. The soul-suppressing coffin, as the name suggests, has the function of soul-suppressing. No matter it's any zombie, evil spirit, or ghost. As long as you are imprisoned in the soul-suppressing coffin, the resentment will be suppressed, and over time the resentment will completely disappear. I can't tell the truth in this situation. But I can't find any other reason. I secretly apologized to Grandpa. The city god didn't say anything, he just looked at me quietly. After a while, a powerful pressure burst out from the city god, and he shouted sternly, "You are lying." As soon as these words came out, I felt a chill in my heart, and cold sweat suddenly broke out on my back. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 137. After hearing this sentence, my first reaction was that the lie had been exposed. I forced myself to calm down and not panic at this time. It is impossible for the city god to know about Qinjiangxing. Because this was a heavenly secret, Su Tianqian was not able to predict the reason when he was doing the divination. Also, my fate is not so easy to see through. So, this city god is still trying to trick me? Thinking of this, my eyes became extremely firm, and I said with absolute certainty, "I didn't lie to you." The city god and I looked at each other for a long time. During this process, my eyes did not change at all. If I make a mistake at this juncture, the consequences will be disastrous. After a while, the city god raised the corners of his mouth slightly and smiled at me, "That's why I thought wrong." I sighed inwardly, finally making the false god in front of me believe it. The city god stood with his hands behind his hands and said slowly, "I can lend you the soul-suppressing coffin. No, I'm giving it to you." I felt happy. If the city god could give me the soul-suppressing coffin, the current difficulties would be solved. However, the city god changed the subject and said, "But I have a condition." Condition? I sneered in my heart and said that the city god was not so kind. "City god," you said, "as long as it is something I can do, I will try my best to do it." The city god laughed and said, "You will definitely be able to do this. Surely it can be done?" I suddenly had a bad feeling in my heart. "What I want you to do is very simple, that is to become my heir and inherit the mantle of Tianfu city god." As soon as these words came out, Wu 11 froze on the spot for a moment, then turned his head and looked at me in surprise, as if he had heard something incredible. City god inheritance. What is this? Just when I was confused, the city god continued, "What? Don't you agree?" Wu 11 quickly reached out and pulled the corner of my clothes, and whispered to me, "Hurry up and agree. The inheritance of the city god is a great opportunity." A great opportunity? The city god in front of him is obviously a false god, doing unscrupulous things in the name of God. Could this divine inheritance be an opportunity? I think it's a trap. I looked at the city god, took a deep breath, and said, "Cheng god, to be honest, I already have a master, so I cannot accept your inheritance. The city god was slightly stunned and asked, your master? Who is your master? I replied without thinking, Su Tianxian. The smile on the city god's face gradually dissipated, replaced by endless coldness. When I saw the change in the expression on Chen Wang's face, I knew I had said the wrong thing. But after all is said and done, it is no longer possible to change. The expression on the city god's face changed again. The coldness slowly dissipated, and the face that seemed to be smiling but not smiling returned. This really deceived me. What on earth does the city god want to do? That little girl Tianxian. I know her, and there is some connection with her, but there is no conflict between you being her disciple and inheriting Tianfu city god. As long as you agree to inherit my Tianfu city god, that soul-suppressing coffin will be yours. If you don't inherit, the murderous intent flashing through the eyes of the city god said everything. If you don't agree, there is only a dead end. I really don't understand why the city god insists on letting me inherit the Tianfu city god. Is there any secret behind this? Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 138. Whether there is a conspiracy or not, I don't know. Anyway, if I don't agree to inherit Tianfu city god now, it's impossible for me to leave here. I took a deep breath and said to the city god, okay. I promise you. Regardless of what the city god has planned, it is better to get the soul-suppressing coffin first. Only if you survive can you think about what comes next. Even if something does happen later, the soldiers will come to cover up the water and the soil. I believe there will be a solution. Besides, getting the inheritance from Tianfu city god is not a bad thing. At least I can get the power of the city god. This can be regarded as a way to become stronger. The city god laughed and said, okay. After saying that, the city god stretched out his hand, flicked his fingers, and a ray of golden light penetrated my forehead. I trembled all over, feeling like my head was about to burst, and endless pain spread throughout my body. Cold sweat immediately dripped from his forehead. This went on for a minute. After a minute, I was back to normal. I don't feel any changes in my body either. The city god said to me, go and do your business first. I will take the initiative to find you when the time comes. I nodded, and the city god turned into a ray of golden light and merged into the statue. Seeing this scene, I quickly called Wu 11 to leave quickly. You can't stay here for long. Maybe the city god has changed his mind? Wu 11 quickly ordered his fellow disciples to leave here quickly. On the way to the coffin shop, Wu 11 suddenly said, Lu Su, you are so lucky. You are actually appreciated by the city god. I shook my head, looked at Wu 11, and said, you don't really think this is a good thing, do you? Wu 11 was stunned for a moment and asked, why isn't this a good thing? That's the inheritance of the city god. Do you know how many yin soldiers and yin generals there are in a city? The city god is not only the county official but also the current administrator. Good and evil will be rewarded in the end, and the end of right and wrong will be clear. As a Taoist god who oversees the two realms of yin and yang and is in charge of retribution, the city god protects everyone, every city, and every story. There must be countless troops under his command, but I really don't know how many exactly. Seeing my confused look, Wu 11 said, the Tianfu city god has countless soldiers, 2 gods who patrol during the day and night, 6 generals and a bunch of government servants and ghosts. The underworld soldiers under his command are at least 100,000. I was shocked when I heard this. Are there so many? Wu 11 continued, you are now the heir to the Tianfu city god. After the current city god abdicates, these yin soldiers and yin generals will all be yours. Although you are not a real city god yet, you can still mobilize some of the yin soldiers and yin generals. Wu 11 became more and more enthusiastic as he talked, and he patted my shoulder. "Brother, when you get rich in the future, don't forget me. After I die, I think that blind man dares to touch me." I smiled helplessly, feeling increasingly heavy. Is it really a good thing to get the inheritance from Tianfu City God? Will the City God really let me inherit the position of City God? I don't think so. Wei Shen's identity says everything. He cannot think of the world wholeheartedly. And everything he does has his own purpose. Including letting me inherit his mantle this time. As for why the City God chose me to inherit his mantle, I think it's because of my special destiny. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 139. Soon, a group of us returned to the coffin shop. Mr. Wu went out to greet him, and then carried the soul-crushing coffin into the coffin shop. Seeing that we were back, Xia 11 hurriedly came to me, her beautiful eyes looked back and forth on me, her red lips slightly opened, and she asked with concern, "Are you okay?" I shook my head and said, "Everything went well." After Xia 11 confirmed that I was not injured, her frowning eyebrows slowly relaxed. She breathed a long sigh of relief and murmured in a low voice, "It's okay, it's okay. It's okay." I smiled at Xia 11. She must have been worried about me during the time I was at the Chenghuang Temple. Mr. Wu stood in front of the soul-suppressing coffin, stretched out his hand, and gently touched the coffin body. His eyes were full of shock and appreciation. "This is simply incredible workmanship. Who can build such a perfect coffin?" Mr. Wu was originally a coffin bearer and was very sensitive to coffins. In his eyes, the coffin is a work of art. After Mr. Wu sighed, he looked at me, his cloudy eyes full of admiration. "Lu Su, you really didn't disgrace your grandfather." After hearing this, I smiled slightly and said, "Old man, please don't praise me. If it weren't for Wu 11, I wouldn't have been able to get this soul-suppressing coffin. If it hadn't been for Wu 11, I would have probably been killed by that Taoist priest, and why would we be talking about carrying the coffin? I have to say that Wu 11's combat power is really off the charts. She looked as soft and weak as a woman, but she started to curse and curse with deadly moves. Is this a sense of contrast?" Wu 11 said on the side, "Grandpa, you still don't know that Lu Su has obtained the inheritance of Tianfu City God." When Mr. Wu heard this, he was stunned for a moment. "Have you obtained the inheritance from Tianfu City God?" Mr. Wu asked in surprise. I nodded. Mr. Wu took a breath and asked in shock, "This is such a great opportunity. Your boy's good luck is really enviable. It seems that Zhang Qinzhuang's face project has been done well. In the hearts of the world, he is the human god of Tianfu City God and the city god respected by the world. But actually, kill people and steal souls to increase your own cultivation. But think about it carefully, who would believe that a righteous city god would do such a despicable thing? No one would believe it even if I told it. As for the true face of the city god, I think I should keep it in my heart. If I had to tell someone, that person must be Su Tianxian." Mr. Wu patted me on the shoulder and said, "Boy, work well under the city god. You will be the next city god of Tianfu City." I nodded and asked, "Old man, what exactly do you want the soul coffin to be used for?" I have always had a doubt in my heart, that is, what does Mr. Wu want to do with the soul-suppressing coffin? Mr. Wu replied, "This soul-suppressing coffin will naturally be of no use to me, but you need it." "I need to?" Seeing the confused look on my face, Mr. Wu explained, "The origin of Qingyang star can only be suppressed with the soul-suppressing coffin, so that it can reach its destination safely. I always thought that Mr. Wu wanted the soul coffin because he wanted to use it. But I never expected that he asked me to get the soul-suppressing coffin because of me. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 140. Mr. Wu said to Wu 11, "Get ready to open the coffin." Wu 11 nodded, took out the tools to open the coffin, and under the command of Mr. Wu, Wu 11 opened the lid of the soul-suppressing coffin. A cold air poured out from the coffin, and the white mist instantly spread to the entire coffin shop, like a fairyland. Mr. Wu stepped forward to check the situation in the coffin. Mr. Wu groaned and said to himself, "What's going on?" I couldn't suppress my curiosity, so I quickly stepped forward to check. When I saw clearly what was inside the coffin, I froze on the spot. Because, the coffin is empty. I originally thought that the coffin would be the body of the city god, but now it seems that I was overthinking it. However, if the physical body of the city god is not here, then where is it? Mr. Wu was surprised for a moment and then regained his composure. It seems that the rumors are false. The body of the city god is not in the soul coffin. Rumors are just rumors after all. How could something as important as a physical body be found so easily? Mr. Wu continued, "Fortunately, I don't have a physical body. It would be very troublesome if I had a physical body. I don't understand all the details involved, so I can only leave these matters to Mr. Wu." Mr. Wu called me aside and said, "Boy, if you want to completely let the Qingyang star enter your life palace, you must attract the origin and then seal it in the soul-suppressing coffin. The function of the soul-suppressing coffin is to suppress the soul. It would be perfect to suppress the origin of Qingyang evil star in the soul-suppressing coffin. However, how to seal Qingyang evil star in the soul-suppressing coffin is also a problem." Mr. Wu seemed to have seen what I was thinking, and explained, "As for how to seal Qingyang evil star in the soul-suppressing coffin, Master Tianqian has already made arrangements." Mr. Wu walked into the back room, and when he came out again, he actually held a tablet in his hand. He handed the tablet to me, and when I saw the words on it, I was stunned. This tablet actually has my name written on it. Mr. Wu saw that I was so surprised and said to one side, "This spiritual tablet is equivalent to your stand-in. It has your horoscope and breath on it. If you put this spiritual tablet in the soul-suppressing coffin, it will naturally attract the source of the evil star to snatch it." I instantly understood that Su Tianqian had found a substitute for me to attract the attention of the evil star. As long as the source of the evil star enters the soul-suppressing coffin, there will be no possibility of escape. To be honest, I kind of want to meet Su Tianqian. Although I pretended to break up with her because of that incident, I still wanted to see her in person and explain. But the painted skin ghost may not be staring at me from somewhere right now. Meeting her rashly may not be a good thing. Mr. Wu waved to Xia 11 and said, "Girl, come here." Xia 11 came to Mr. Wu and asked, "Grandpa Wu, what's the matter?" Mr. Wu glanced at Xia 11, then at me, and said, "It's a bit unrealistic to bury 3 coffins together." "Ah." I looked at Mr. Wu with some confusion. Mr. Wu laughed and said, "I don't have that many coffins in my coffin shop. I only have 1 double coffin now. I can give it to you too when the time comes." I let out a long sigh. It turned out to be a false alarm. A double coffin is also fine, so that Xia 11 won't be too scared to be alone in the coffin.